Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Queen's Lounge. My name is Jacob, and I'm so happy to see some familiar faces from earlier this week when we were discussing diamonds and gemstones. Yeah, thanks for coming back. Now, the new faces, my name is Jacob. I just mentioned that. I'm your port shopping ambassador. My main focus this week is to make sure that you get the best deals while you're shopping at Import. Now, I'm glad to see some new faces because that means you guys are interested in watches, which is what we're going to discuss today. Now, I have three favorite brands myself that I'm going to discuss later on, Hublot, Movado, and Philippe Stein. But before we discuss any of those individual brands, I'm going to go over a little bit of the watch terminology, things that you should know, things that you're going to hear tomorrow when you're discussing these watches with the jewelry experts at Diamonds International, Diamonds and Design, or Diamonds International Watch and Design, I do apologize, which is going to be store number 1 on your port shopping map. Go ahead and circle that with me, store number 1, Diamonds International Watch and Design. Tomorrow in St. Martin, I will be there pretty much all day starting at 7 a.m. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow we are going to see so many watches. And you're going to hear so many terms that you maybe not familiar with, maybe you are familiar with. I'm going to tell you the basic terms. That way you can have just a general understanding of what it takes to make a watch move. Now, speaking of move, the first piece I want to discuss is called a movement. Now, there's 3 main types of movements. There's a quartz movement, which is run by battery. There's an automatic movement, which is wound just by the general motion of your wrist and everyday wear. And then there's a manual movement, which you actually take the crown of the diamond and you wind it up each and every day, once a day. That's all you need to do, and it keeps the time ticking, keeps it wound, and it's really a fantastic thing. But the thing about movements, that is the heart of the watch. In a movement, which is the actual heart of the watch that actually keeps it ticking and tells you the time, there's anywhere between 200 and 2,000 teeny tiny little gears and pieces that keep moving all day long. Watches are one of the most complicated pieces of technology that you're ever going to own. And people don't even realize it because they're so small, but they are so intricate. Depending on what you buy, ladies and gentlemen, these are going to make you heirlooms. They're going to pass down from your children to your children to your children as long as you get your timepiece. And it doesn't matter if you... What holds the heart in is the case. The case is usually made of aluminum, but it can be made of gold or titanium or platinum, and that's also what holds the bezel on, the crystal, and it has the mounts for your strap or your bracelet. So it's kind of the house that holds the heart in, because everything's going to connect to the case. Now, the bezel is going to be a small ring of metal that holds the crystal to the case. Now, I'll discuss crystal in just a minute, but the bezel can have several different functions. Its main function is to hold that crystal onto the case, because that's very important. We want to protect the movement. You can also get a couple different complications or functions of the watch through the bezel, such as a world clock. And you can actually go from different time zone to time zone. So you can tell the entire world's clock on one little watch just on your wrist, just by the twist of the bezel. And then the crystal, that was the last thing I was going to discuss. Oh, and the crown. Of course, we can't forget the crown. But the crystal is going to be the actual window that you look through so that you can see the movement, so that you can actually look and see what time it is. Now, one of the things that I always get asked is, Jacob, I'm really rough on my watches, or I do a lot of work in and outdoors, and I need a watch that is scratch-proof. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so sorry to tell you that we have yet to discover anything harder than diamond. So what I suggest, and it really is the next best thing that you're going to do, is you're going to get a sapphire crystal. That is going to be the hardest thing that you can put on top of that watch to make it relatively scratch-proof. You have your sapphire crystal, which is going to be the hardest to scratch. You have your mineral crystal, which is going to be a hardened glass, which is relatively hard to scratch. And if you're doing a lot of indoor work or you're doing a lot of office work, that's going to be a perfectly valid option for you. But if you're looking to save a little bit of money, you can always get an acrylic crystal. They're kind of thin, they're flexible and soft, but one of the good things about them is if you do get a light scratch on it, a lot of times if you take it to a watch shop, they can actually buff it. That is what a crystal is. It is just a window that is held on by the bezel, attached to the case, so that you can see the movement inside. Now the last thing that I didn't discuss is usually on the side of a watch, you have got a small dial. Does anyone know what that dial is called? Yeah, it's called the crown. Now, I know a lot of you get confused, myself included. When I first started working with watches about 4 or 5 years ago, I was discussing crown earlier this week when I was doing the diamonds and gemstones. And the crown of a diamond is anything above the girdle. So a lot of people think the crown of a watch is the face of the watch, or what we just discussed as the crystal. The crown of a watch is actually the dial on the side of the watch that you use to either wind your watch or set the time. And it has a couple different functions depending on the complications that you buy. But that is the crown of the watch. Now when it comes to the crown, the one thing I suggest you look at if you're looking to buy a diver's watch is to make sure that you have a screw-in crown, which means when you get all the way up to the actual case, the crown itself screws into the case, making it more water resistant. That way you can dive a little bit deeper. Now, speaking of diver's watch, I heard a couple of you earlier discussing that you're going to go diving tomorrow in St. Martin, and I hope you get to see some amazing things. I did it a few weeks ago. But diver's watches. How many of you have heard of waterproof watches? Yeah, there's always a few places out there that advertise them, but I'm here to tell you folks there's no actual thing as waterproof watches. There is going to be a point to every watch that once you get it deep enough, it will start to leak. So when it comes to your watch, and if you're looking to buy a diver's watch, make sure you look at exactly what grade it's looking to go. And most of the time, especially on all of your high-end watches, they're going to be labeled as water resistant. Up to 300 meters, water resistant, up to 1,000 feet. They're going to be listed something like that. That doesn't mean that you can take them out in the rain or fine. That means you can literally dive with them up to 1,000 feet, and they are going to be water resistant. But once you go past that, the pressure of the water will start to damage the inside of the movement and start to leak in. So definitely look at the deepness of how far you can swim with that. Now, when it comes to those, that's pretty much the basic terminology. You've got your crown, you've got your crystal, your case, your bezel. Now we're going to go ahead and discuss those watches that I was talking about earlier. Hublot is my favorite, and that's the one that I was discussing as my personal favorite, and then we'll discuss my mom's personal favorite, Philip Stein, in just a second. But how many of you have heard of Hublot? Yeah, lots of you. And why? Yes, it was. It was the official timepiece of the World Cup this year in Brazil, and it is one of the most sought-after luxury sport watches of all time right now. Now, the thing about the Hublot is it's going to make a statement. It's going to get you noticed. Hublot itself is the French word for porthole, and they're pretty famous for their unique design and attention to detail. But the thing about Hublot is a lot of their watches are limited edition. They don't make super large quantities of all their watches, but they do make very high quality watches, which makes them very collectible because there's not a super large amount of each and every design. Now, when it comes to these particular type of watch, what gets you noticed and what makes that statement every time you wear a Hublot is they're maybe a little bit larger on certain designs, but they're modern design, cutting-edge materials. They use things like zirconium, ceramics, as well as titanium. Those are the things that really make a statement when it comes to the Hublot. Now, you're always going to notice them. Usually there's a little hint of bright color here or there. That way you can really see it. But there's 100 or so different designs. You don't have to get the bright colors. You don't have to get the ones that are very big. There's always going to be a watch that fits you, so definitely get out there and look at it. But if you want to make a statement, Hublot is the one that I think you should personally get. It's definitely one of my favorite watches. I personally own 2 of them. They've lasted me a lifetime. I plan on passing them down to my children because I have 2 designs that are not going to grow old. Now, speaking of passing things down to your children, if you're looking to invest in an heirloom or something that you can really pass down, because of course most of us know our grandfathers, that the most prized possession they had was their pocket watch. At the time, pocket watches were quite expensive, so it was almost a life savings to actually save up, get that pocket watch, and you pass it down from father to son to grandson and on down the line. In fact, I have one of my great grandfather's pocket watches, and I absolutely love it. But I can't really pass it down as a usable piece anymore. It's more of a pass it down as a memorabilia thing. And the reason I don't want to use it anymore is because it's becoming almost 100 years old now, and I don't really want my grandson putting it in his pocket all day long because it's 100 piece old of history now. And so I'm starting to make my own collection of watches that I can pass down to my children. And really, I mean, watches can last a lifetime. I've got a watch right now in my house that is a little over 200 years old. Absolutely gorgeous piece. And you know what? It still ticks perfectly every single day. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the cool thing about watches is they're so intricate you can actually use them over and over. Now, the next one that I'm going to discuss is Movado. Now, as a businessman, I have to dress quite nicely each and every day. And the thing that I like about Movado is they are classic designs. You're going to see very sleek designs with them. But the reason I want to discuss Movado with you today is right here in the Caribbean, and only here in the Caribbean, there is a very special deal with Movado. Now, a stainless steel blackstrap Movado at home is going to cost you about $500 plus tax. Here in the Caribbean, this week, next week, there is a very special deal. Ladies and gentlemen, a stainless steel blackstrap. There's two different tones that you can buy, as well as you can buy it in his and hers. It's buy two for $399. That's a total of over 60% savings. That is the deal of the year when it comes to watches, ladies and gentlemen. That is the piece that I'm going to suggest you get. Ladies and gentlemen, it makes an amazing gift. It comes in his and hers, so if you want to get a nice little couple's watch, whether it be in different tones, they do set you apart. They do come in different sizes, such as the his and hers, and a little bit of different design. They're absolutely amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the piece that I definitely suggest you look at tomorrow at Diamonds International Watch and Design is the Movado watches. And of course, you don't have to get the stainless steel with blackstrap. They've got all sorts of different classic designs, all the way into diamond-crusted dials, which are absolutely gorgeous. Movado, one of my favorites. It's an absolutely great piece to have, especially if you're a businessman, because it has all of the classic looks and very sleek design. And then my favorite that I bought for my mom, Philip Stein. How many of you here have heard of Philip Stein? Yeah, a lot of you. And why? Oprah, of course. I knew someone was going to say it. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who don't watch Oprah, Oprah every year does a thing called Oprah's Favorite Things. Usually around Christmas, she posts all of her favorite things and she gives away a lot of different things to her audience. The only thing that has ever made it to Oprah's Favorite Things 3 years in a row was Philip Stein watch. Now, the reason Philip Stein's watches are so cool, you may have also heard them called as the feel-good watch. This is the only watch in the world who uses natural frequency technology. Now, what this means is the watch itself actually brings your body's frequency closer to the Earth's frequency. That way you can actually start to mellow out and calm things down. It's proven to reduce stress, help with arthritis. The reason I bought it for my mom, not only does she have arthritis, and it has helped aid her arthritis tenfold in the past 3 years that she's been wearing it. Every single birthday, Christmas, special occasion that I need to buy her a gift, it makes gift buying so easy. The really cool thing about Philip Stein watches is pretty much every single strap is interchangeable. There are over 1,000 different straps to choose from. My mom has a great timepiece. It is a classic look, and she's got a strap that matches every single occasion because over the past 3 years, I've probably bought her 2 to 3 straps a year, giving her a great range of colors, different materials and leather that she can wear with, and she really does love it because it has such a versatility when it comes to her wardrobe and her outfit with just one watch. That's one of my reasons I love those particular 3. The straps, the classic design with Movado, and of course the statement making with Hublot. Now, when it comes to watches in the Caribbean though, I always get that question, Jacob, how do I know I'm getting a good deal? Ladies and gentlemen, there are 3 main things you need to know about shopping for watches or anything else in the Caribbean when it comes to fine jewelry, diamonds, gemstones, and watches. there are no tax and duty fees, which is already going to be, 5 to 15% saving. There are no import fees on any of the merchants here. If you're buying things in the U.S., all of the merchants actually have to pay an import fee to get them